The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Love it.
Or loathe it entirely. Hi, I'm Nick. No, not that Nick. But my last name does start with Mac. I am here to double check this fool's logic and math in this video and weigh in here and there.
Yeah, thanks, bud. Anyways, it sure is a movie to remember. But what if I told you that after the plot concludes, the world of the Grinch gets cataclysmically destroyed in a world-ending event?
I'd say you're on crack.
I'm Mr. White Christmas. I'm high on crack.
Well, buckle up, because that's what we're covering today. But first, some background on how this came to me. Do you ever just have an idea, and once a year or so you remember it, but never remember to do it? Well, that's been me for the last 6 years or so, whenever the holidays come around. One fine winter evening, I was sitting at home watching The Grinch Who Stole Christmas with my family, when a silly little line in the movie bombarded my mind.
I don't need to remind you that this Christmas marks the 1000th jubilation.
Whoville's most important celebration.
I'm sure most of you who have seen this movie thought nothing of it. But the film goes out of its way to remind us that this is the 1000th celebration of Christmas in Whoville. From characters mentioning it to this big ol' sign in the village center. It's a big deal to the characters, and if we stop and think about it, it's an even bigger deal for us too. At the beginning of the film, we see a snowflake falling amidst other flakes in a calm-looking snow shower. This snowflake takes center stage, and we zoom in on it to see that Whoville, in the world of the Grinch, happens on this very snowflake. Now, we can just call this Dr. Seussian magic and leave it there, but no, not on this channel. Generations upon generations of Whos live and die on this snowflake. And that's not even the craziest part. The narrator says this.
Arbor Day was fine, and Easter was pleasant, and every St. Fizzin's Day they ate a fizz pheasant. But every Who knew, from their 12 toes to their snout, they loved Christmas the most, without a single Who doubt.
So not only do the Who celebrate Christmas, but also Easter. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, there is a Who Jesus. The Who Roman Empire nailed that guy to a cross and let him die there.
Dude, what are you smoking?
Sweet, sweet marijuana, my friend. Disturbing holiday implications aside, the mentioning of Arbor Day, Easter, and Christmas all point to the Whos using the Gregorian calendar as we do in the real world. Their years are 12 months long, and the Who seemingly have a similar way of life as us humans do. Now obviously, this is so the audience can relate to the characters and make the world feel more real. But due to these film decisions, we have some crazy science to do if we want to unpack the past and future of those Whos down in Whoville. I'm going to be upfront with y'all and tell you, I had to make some big assumptions here.
Boy, does he make a lot of those.
These snowflakes aren't real. They are CGI Christmas magic. And I'm applying real-world math and science to them because of the movie's narrative. With that said, let's find out how long this particular snowflake, let's call it the Who Flake, exists for. Snowflakes come in all shapes and sizes. It's commonly said that there are no two snowflakes that are alike. But their shapes do fall into patterns of formation. By looking at the shape and structure of our Who Flake and comparing it to the rest of the types, it appears to be a stellar dendrite.
Now that we know what kind of shape the snowflake is, the next step is to see how long it takes that kind of snowflake to fall from its cloud. The type of cloud we're going to assume it formed in is a nimbostratus cloud, which from the research seems to be a very common type of cloud snowfall can come from.
Speaking of research, any and all papers I use data from in this video will be linked in the description, as well as the rest of our sources.
According to the International Cloud Atlas, the main body of nimbostratus almost invariably occurs at altitudes between 2 and 4 kilometers in polar regions, which is about 6,500 to 13,000 feet, between 2 and 7 kilometers in temperate regions, which is about 6,500 to 23,000 feet, and between 2 and 8 kilometers in tropical regions, which is 6,500 to 25,000 feet. However, the base is often below these limits and the upper surface is above them.
As our cloud resides in the land of Hollywood magic, I'm going to play it safe and use 3 different heights in my calculation based on this information. All of the lowest points for the different regions start at 2 kilometers high, so that's our easy first measurement. To find the tallest height for our cloud, I'm going to take the mean values of 4 kilometers, 7 kilometers, and 8 kilometers to get our cloud's maximum height of 6.34 kilometers high.
If you're wondering why he didn't just use the highest value of 8 kilometers, it's because that's only really found in tropical areas.
That's right, and as an American, I'm assuming this Christmas cloud is American too. So I took the mean of all the maximums instead of just discounting it so it's still represented in the data. With our maximum and minimum heights found, let's find the median of those two to give us the middle range height of 4.15 kilometers. Now that we have accounted for variations in our cloud height, let's figure out how long it takes for our dendrite hooflake to reach the ground. According to the paper, Shape Dependence of Snow Crystal Fall Speed, the median fall speed for stellar snowflakes is 0.39 meters per second.
Or for our fellow Americans used to freedom units, 0.87 miles per hour, which is about the average speed of my commute home.
Now we plug all our numbers into the equation time equals distance divided by speed, and we do that for each of the three cloud types. At our lowest altitude of 2 kilometers high, it takes 1 hour, 25 minutes, and 28 seconds for the hooflake to fall to the ground. For our middle altitude cloud of 4.15 kilometers, it takes 2 hours, 57 minutes, and 6 seconds long, leaving our tallest cloud of 6.3 kilometers coming at a whopping 4 hours, 29 minutes, and 13 seconds. At this point in the video, you may be asking yourself, well, why do I care how long it takes for a stellar dendrite to fall to the ground? What happened to the Grinch, Who Jesus, and the apocalypse? Well, worry not, my math-hating friends. We are getting there. But back to math for a second. We may have the time it takes for the snowflake to hit the ground, but what about the time it spent in the cloud? The Whos didn't just come out of nowhere, they had to evolve on the snowflake, just as the snowflake did inside the cloud. Let's assume that our hooflake formed in a single day.
According to Ricky Bond, an expert meteorologist, snowflake formation takes 30 to 60 minutes, with some taking hours or days to develop.
Since our snowflake is obviously magical, and on the more complicated side of patterns, I feel safe assuming it took longer to form. Now, as our Earth is the only marker we have for evolutionary time, let's assume it took the Whos around 4 billion years to evolve, starting right after the snowflake formed. Now on our planet, we Homo sapiens have been around for 300,000 years. I don't know how long it would take for the Who species to evolve, so let's assume they have been civilized for only a short amount of time before the first Christmas celebration, 1,000 snowflake years before the start of the film.
And to those who say the Whos didn't evolve due to the whole babies coming from the sky thing, I don't know, man. There are dogs and there's Whos, and they aren't the same race, and there's whatever the Grinch is, evolution had to happen somehow.
But wait! 24 hours in the cloud before falling, and 4 billion years on the snowflake for the evolution of the Whos? That doesn't make sense.
And you're right, it doesn't.
No matter how long the hooflake took to form, life almost identical to ours formed in a very, very short time span compared to us. This absolutely befuddled me for years. So what's the answer to this issue? Time dilation, of course. The rate of time passing on their world is not the same as ours. Let's call it relative time acceleration. So with our assumption that 24 hours on Earth equals 4 billion and 1,000 years on the hooflake, let's divide each side by 2 so we can get a better understanding of how time scales. Looking at this lovely chart I made, we can see that a little over 1 second for us is about 61,000 years for them. On Earth, we were still in the last ice age as hunter-gatherers 61,000 years ago. That is literally before civilization existed. So yeah, that's a lot of time passing for them in a very short amount of time for us. As a big Dragon Ball fan, this reminds me of a certain time chamber our heroes use. Anyways, going down to 11 milliseconds, which is just where our brains can process images at, is about 477 years passing for them. That's literally faster than the blink of an eye, and for them, that would be the same amount of time from the freaking Renaissance till now. Crazy stuff. After figuring this out, I painstakingly took this relative time acceleration table and figured out roughly how much time passes on the snowflake once it leaves the cloud from the 3 heights we discussed earlier. I wasn't able to get exact numbers, but damn was I close.
At 2 kilometers high, the 1 hour, 25 minutes, and 28 seconds to ground gets overplayed with 1 hour, 24 minutes, and 55.5 seconds, equaling 227,539,119 years. At 4.15 kilometers high, the 2 hours, 57 minutes, and 6 seconds of ground came close with 2 hours, 57 minutes, and 5.75 seconds, equaling 477,050,900 years and some change. At 6.3 kilometers high, the 4 hours, 29 minutes, and 13 seconds of ground was basically on the nose, with 4 hours, 29 minutes, and 13.14 seconds, equal to 725,952,329 years.
Now, the reason the numbers aren't super precise is because I'll be honest, I didn't feel like doing more math to get the cleanest answers possible. And with these large timescales, it doesn't matter that I was off by a few seconds here or there. And now to the part you've been waiting for, the extinction of the Grinch and the Who species. If in the hundreds of millions of years in the Who time that passed, a catastrophe or the natural death of the species did not occur, good for them. They survived longer than we humans probably will. And even if they did, they will all come to a very violent end, or at least their world will. When that snowflake hits the ground, it's not going to just stay perfectly intact. Other snow will fall on top of it, and because of that, it can undergo a variety of changes, such as compression, which is fluffy snow becoming denser snow. Breakdown, which are flakes breaking apart into smaller pieces. Sintering, which was when snowflakes bond together to form a more stable snowpack. Or sublimation and refreezing, which completely alters the snow by merging with the surrounding snow. Any and all changes to this snowflake would be worse than any catastrophe we humans have experienced so far. It would be a world and civilization-ending apocalypse. From the Who's perspective, their world would be crushed, broken, or disintegrated, destroying everything and everyone. So there you have it, folks. After tons of research on snow and some assumed calculations, the Grinch and all of his Who friends are dead before the credits even roll.
So, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.